While in Kansas, the team stopped to see Jerry Toews, an early engine collector. He shared the unique story and history of his 1882 3.5 horsepower auto slide valve engine. Jerry purchased this engine in the early 1980s out of a museum in England, but it looked very different than it does today.
As you can imagine, these slide valve engines were obsolete almost as soon as they came out, because when these were produced, it was before electricity, and so they didn't know much about ignition, and so they thought they needed a fire for ignition. And these both have the pilot light that operates in these chimneys, just like the pilot light on your stove at home or your furnace. And so what happened to this engine, and it happened to a lot of these slide valve engines, is they were modified as technology came along. And this entire slide valve mechanism, everything from here forward, this dog bone, the inlet of fuel, all of this stuff was sawed off right here. This governor was sawed off of the cylinder. And Henry Booth, which you'll see this nameplate over here, there's a cylinder head over here that was cast that had more modern technology, and it was bolted to the front of this engine. And it had a traditional type carburetor on it. It used a hot tube ignition, and it had a more modern governor. It used a pendulum type governor. So when we got this engine, this cylinder head was on here, and all of these original parts that made it so unique were all gone. And it sat over in our east building, that first building that you folks went through, for years. And I was always going to put it back like this. But luckily, I never did, because I would have cobbled it very much. Wayne Grenning came along and did a superb job. And I think Alex picked up the book. This is the documentation of what he did when he put this is 900 pages of this restoration.
The job to restore this engine was a massive undertaking. Wayne started by traveling to a museum in England that has an identical slide valve engine. Wayne paid the museum to let him take the engine apart and measure the pieces he needed to make. Back in the United States, Wayne worked with his son to make digital drawings and computer model the engine. This process alone took several months. The drawings were then given to a pattern shop who made over 50 different patterns. Castings were made from the patterns, and Wayne machined every piece, making sure it was just like the original. The entire project took 2 years. Jerry had one request Wayne had to follow.
And one of the things that I didn't want to have happen, I didn't want this engine to be repainted, because all this paint on here is original. If you walk around here and look at this, you'll see some original pinstriping up along here, along these bearings. Like, there's some quite good pinstriping here, you'll see. And if you look on the base over here, you'll see this number 4484. That's a serial number of this engine. That was painted on there in 1882. And to think that that survived, this dark green paint along here, it retains most of that. That's all original. So Wayne had to put this piece on here. This is a casting, and he fastened that on here. He put all of these guides, this upper and lower guide for the slide valve, this cover, all of that on there. You can barely tell where it's been joined to the cylinder. And then he colored it just to give it that dark green patina. But I think he did just a fantastic job.
Beautiful.
Yeah. You know, we lit the pilot light here that continuously burns. And this is a decompression cam that I have over here. And once it's fired a little bit, then I'll come and give it full compression. Type of hit and miss governor. This governor moves a spool back and forth here. You can look at it. And when it lines up with this cam, it raises this. And this is the main fuel valve. When this goes up, you'll hear it fire. Hear it fired. Now it's coasting. Now it's fired. Now it's coasting.
The sliding valve serves three functions. It lets an inlet of gas, air, and ignition into the cylinder. The passages are extremely critical, and it's amazing to think that in the 1870s, someone could do this precise of work. These engines originally ran on coal gas, or illuminating gas, which was used in the city for streetlights. Jerry's engines run on hydrogen, which has similar properties to coal gas. Hydrogen has the added benefit of being clean burning, as the exhaust is little more than water.
You bought an engine like this, you got this box with the serial number on it, and what did it have in it but another slide valve and a wear plate. And what you were supposed to do when your slide valve started wearing, you would send that and the wear plate to the factory, and then you'd put this other one on. They would re-scrape it at the factory and send it back to you, and then when this one wore, then they would renew them that way. So Wayne, we made the box, but Wayne made the extra slide valve and plate.
Did he already scrape that one for you? I know
Yes.
how long it takes him to do it. So.
Yeah, it's all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, none of it's easy, is it? I mean,
Oh man,
it's just all
I forget. I mean, honestly, how many hours he spends scraping those. I mean, it takes him days to do that.
Right.
Just to, by scraping it, I mean, he's just getting it like completely flat. Because with a machine, you can't do it flat enough.
Yeah, that's what amazes me is you can hand scrape it.
Hand scrape it and then he runs ink over it.
More accurately than you can do it with the finest machine too.
Very few of these early engines still exist, so they are highly sought after by collectors. In 2012, Allman Vintage Power sold an 1888 Crossley slide valve rated at 2 horsepower for $336,000 US.